Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are in the world. I'm Mark Sugiyama from Eclectic Arts. Welcome to the Eclectic Arts Virtual Studio on Tuesday, the 19th of 2021. I'm trying to get better at actually saying who I am and my dates, as I posted a little while ago that I had seen there was a chunk of time back in the fall where not one of my interviews did I introduce myself, which was incredibly rude and kind of stupid. So now I'm trying to be mindful of that. Hopefully, you're having a nice Tuesday up here in Seattle, Washington. It's actually kind of nice up here, but I understand we're supposed to get a cold front in, and some of that white stuff might be showing up early next week, which is always pretty to look at, but not to necessarily function in. And just coming up for people that are looking at the streams, and let me do something real quick before I forget. Um, Tomorrow on Wednesday, I have director Lance Oppenheim, who has directed this really wonderful. Hi, Industrial Girl. Good to see you down in East LA. Thanks for joining me again, 2 days in a row. Lance directed this wonderful documentary that just came out on Friday called Some Kind of Heaven, and it's about the Villages, which is the largest retirement community in Florida. It's about 130,000 residents, so it's basically like a small city. And it's supposed to rain next week here. Okay, yeah, maybe that would make sense. If you guys get the rain, then maybe we're going to get like a rain-snow mix, depending on how cold it gets up here in Seattle. So um, we'll kind of see how that goes. And Thursday, for those that like the heavier side of things, I have Distartica. Two of the members are going to be joining me, and they're a thrash metal band from Houston, Texas. So I'm looking forward to going back to my metal roots and talking with them. And then the next scheduled one is on Saturday. It's a part 2 with Ed Craig, Tales from the Road. And Ed has been a tour bus driver for John Five and Doyle and Skeleton Witch, and I know I'm missing some other. I've done some pop and some rap people, and it was great talking with him a couple months ago, back in I want to say November. So he's coming back on Saturday, and we're going to get more into his tour things and also his personal background. He's kind of teased me that he has something he wants to really talk about that he thought was really special. It's something that he and his wife had done for their local community. So those of you that watch me know that I have a community-based mindset and also a background. So I'm always, interested in that type of thing. So that's what's coming up for this week, and then we'll move into the last week of January. So let's get to my guest today because I'm really excited to talk to her. My guest today is a musician, producer, songwriter, and much more. With her recent work, she learned she can achieve anything, and we'll kind of talk about that later. Please welcome to the Eclectic Arts Virtual Studio, Boh Doran. Let me bring her in here. Hi.
Hi,
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me this afternoon.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. And I took a listen to some of your music, and I immediately was captivated by your voice. It's very ethereal. There seems to be a lot of layers going on with it, and I don't realize I'm kind of jumping around, but can you at least talk about your recent work, and then we'll kind of get into your background story?
Sure. Thank you for the compliment. I really appreciate it. I've recently been releasing some singles. Um, Back in 2015, I put out an EP, and that was a lot of fun. I played a bunch of shows. I worked with a couple really fantastic producers, and then I went away for a little while to learn some production skills on my own, do some writing, some digging into myself and understanding what I thought was cool music, what is great art, what is my message, and came back out with a few songs in 2018. Actually, I'm sorry, 2019 while I was pregnant, to sort of test the waters and see where I wanted to go. And through that process, I picked this current world of music that I'm in. So last year, I put out like 4 or 5 songs. They're all very alternative, hearkening to a lot of the 90s stuff I grew up with. Um, and then I'd like to think a little bit more of a mature songwriting perspective than some of my old stuff, which was just a little bit more youthful pop mentality. So, yeah.
Okay, that's um, when you look back, and you just kind of mentioned it, but when you look back, hi, Captain Blackwood. Nice to see you down in Las Vegas, who just joined us. Um, Sorry about that. I always try to keep up with what's going on with some of the chat messages.
Totally.
Um, when you look back at some of your earlier work, and like you're saying, it's from maybe a more youthful mindset or just a different, place and time. Do you see anything there that you're kind of like, gosh, what was I thinking when when I did that music, or was it kind of like, no, I understand that's where I was, and it's good for what it was at that time?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's par for the course. Like, I think the first phase of realizing I wanted to go in a new direction was looking back at old stuff. And I mean, we all do it. You're like, it's like reading an old journal or something, you know, because you just have as we get older, our worldviews change. And, it used to be like the last record was a lot of love songs, which love songs are great and they have a place, but like having every song be a sort of victim love song gets a little old, and it actually isn't even reflective of who I am. I think when I started writing music, I was very interested in taking a little bit more of a poetic approach lyrically, and a cultural what's the word, just looking at culture and talking about that, as opposed to just writing love songs. um I love love songs also. I don't want to hate on them, and I will probably go back to them at some point, but that's, yeah, a maybe slightly long-winded answer to your question.
No, no, it makes sense. I started off as a musician. I'm a guitar player and have been for a long time. So I can totally relate to what you're saying when it's like par for the course that sometimes we're going to be our biggest critics at times. And you'll look back at something and think, well, that was really good. And I understand that for that time. But yeah, that's not necessarily where my head's at right now. And maybe it'll go back there. Who knows, depending on the topic that you're writing about or anything else. And sometimes it's
Yeah.
good. Sometimes it's good for a laugh too, depending on.
Oh, it's always good for a laugh. And it's good because you should lighten up on yourself and play things for your friends and whatever. Because it's like, it's funny. Everyone has a past that you can like laugh at and also learn from, you know?
Hmm. That's very, very true. I'm just kind of flashbacking to when one of my friends, I went to his house and his roommate was playing an old demo of mine, and he had like cranked on his stereo. And this was like something I did on a 4 track way, way
Whoa.
back when I had hair. And it was just so kind of surreal to see him rocking out to my music that I just didn't picture it that way. Because I recorded like in my apartment in a bedroom, and then here he is just like totally into it, and he didn't realize I was the one he was listening to. He had not met me yet. And it's like, oh, I love that memory that I have from, again, 30 years ago or however long ago that was. But music can be special that way for sure. So, and speaking of which, so it sounded like as a child you had moved around a lot. Your family had moved around a lot. And so, when did music first come into your life?
Oh, it came in really early. My parents both love music and they play instruments. No one ever took it seriously enough to make it a career, but my dad played guitar and sang. He loves doing a good Neil Young impression. And my mom was a big fan of, all the Lilith Fair stuff. And then she also liked Radiohead and Cake, like some more eclectic things, if you will. And then my dad was very traditional, as I said, Neil Young, Bob Dylan, the Beatles. So I got a lot of, you know, both of those tastes at an early age.
Okay. And this is around. Did pick up a guitar then from hearing your dad play, and then start kind of strumming things and working on your own songs at some point, or how did that start to develop?
Yeah, I actually first really got into singing. Um that became my form of expression artistically. I'd say when I was like 5 or 6, I got into it, but I didn't really start taking it seriously, obviously, till a little older. Because what do you take seriously when you're 5, unless your parents are those parents that get you like practicing right away. My first instrument was actually piano, not
Okay.
guitar. I always wanted it to be guitar, but there was something more. The piano felt like it came easier to me in the beginning. And then I picked up guitar later, like end of college is when I started really playing guitar. So, and not I still don't really play guitar. I I write songs on guitar, and I can accompany myself a bit, but that's about it. I want, in this lifetime I want to get good at the guitar, and I think that's one of the reasons I'm focusing on all the alternative music right now is it's nothing but guitars, and I just love that instrument. I really think it's my favorite. So,
Okay. And when you first started off on piano, was that something that you just like immediately took to it and it was good to you and you kept wanting to practicing it better, or was kind of like, oh, it's kind of okay, and then something clicked later on with it?
yeah, it, it was it was definitely a it was definitely an instrument that I saw as a tool to write music on. Um my goal with it was never to sit and like master classical pieces, even though I loved listening to classical music, and I would sometimes picture myself, playing things that Glenn Gould was playing or something. But then when it came down to it, I really just wanted to sing and play at the same time. So,
Okay, so it sounds like it just probably organically you wanted to be a songwriter by sitting at the piano and coming up with the chords and figuring out melodies over it and kind of finding your path.
exactly. Hmm.
Okay, and then correct me if I'm wrong. When you were on the East Coast, you were a part of a band, and so you spent some time with that. So can you speak about that period of your life?
Sure. Uh, so I went to school in Washington, D.C. for international affairs, actually. And I very quickly fell out of love with politics. I'd always been into music, but I didn't think I was going to do it like for my real job until I was in school there, and I was sort of just like not into the scene in Washington D.C. It felt very power hungry and like not what I had originally thought it was going to be. So, I met my then bandmate who was a few years older than I. He was in a band called Exit Clove, which is a Washington D.C. band, and they were a super cool band. And he was looking to start a side project, and he had written all of these instrumentals that were cool, like indie rock songs. And he wanted a singer, and I was looking for something to do my senior year because I was started to really not do well in my studies because I didn't like it anymore.
Mhm.
And I felt like I found my calling. I mean, I was sitting in the basement of the uh the instrument, or I'm sorry, the music school basement in a piano room. I feel like most of my senior year writing music for this project, and we would uh gig on weekends at like the Black Hat and Velvet Lounge, Rock and Roll Hotel. And then his friend started a record label in New York, signed us, and I moved to New York right when I graduated. And that was the next 4 years of my life. So,
Wow. So 4 years with that project in New York. Was this also at the same time when some of the modeling and and TV stuff developed, or did that come later?
yeah, I mean, I've always kind of been in and out of the modeling thing. Um I never fully grasped onto it because I kind of saw it as a side job. And I've actually now developed so much appreciation for models. I know that people don't normally say that, but like it's actually a lot of work, and I really enjoy fashion, and I think aesthetics are very very cool. And so anyway, I just wasn't, I don't know if I was ever really that good at it, to be totally honest. I feel like I was meant for music, and I am where I'm supposed to be. I'll do things like here and there, and it's fun. But yeah, that was kind of a brief chapter.
Okay. Well, and that makes sense. It sounds like it was something that, yeah, like you said, it's fun to do, but it wasn't like your priority, or or maybe even how you look at things. It was like music was always that main thing that you kept coming back to.
Yeah, I've always been in the market for a good side gig, cuz you're trying to pay the bills. Um and first that side gig was waiting tables and bartending, and then it evolved into modeling, and then some DJing, and then into some commercial stuff, which is I still do some of that stuff, but it's for on the music side of things. So I'm doing some composing and singing, and that's fun. I've been doing that for the last like 4 or 5 years.
Okay. All right. And you were saying when you were studying in college that you kind of, lost your perhaps interest in politics, and they're saying how Washington D.C. was, and it wasn't quite matching up with what you thought it was going to be, and then you went to New York with this project, and then eventually you come out to the West Coast and start working on your solo work. Did maybe even right now, but do the politics and having that kind of background in international studies, does it filter into your work, into your lyrics and your songwriting in that process?
That's a good question. Maybe more metaphorically than anything. Um, I thought about being more of a political writer at a certain point. I certainly look up to writers like Woody Guthrie and, I'm sorry, Arlo and Bob Dylan. And since then, I feel like politics and writing has more moved into rap music. And hip hop. There's like a little bit of it, I think, still in indie music. Uh, Not as much. So my point being, I think metaphorically is where I'm sticking for now as far as political writing, because it bleeds into other areas. Um, just humanity and ourselves as people in the world and how to operate. And I've a lot of the recent stuff has just been about living in LA and how I feel here, and keeping up with the Joneses and the entertainment industry, which has its whole own world of politics. Um, yeah.
Okay. Oh, and that makes sense that you're kind of writing about yeah, the move out to LA and what you're experiencing now, and we might talk about now that you're a mom as well. But before we get to those things, and I just lost my train of thought. Oh, that's so bad when that happens to me.
I It happens to me all the time.
Um, oh, with the there was let me make sure I have it. There is a quote on your website that kind of goes right into what we were talking about, and I wanted to kind of read this to people out there that haven't seen it, and I was just kind of wanted to kind of pick your brain a little bit about it. Basically, that you stand for women and people of any background to believe in themselves enough to learn all the skills they need to find their own voice and make a mark in the world. And so, and it also kind of, there's things in there about how that you kind of learn through these recent recordings that you don't need to have the biggest budget and the hugest fanciest studio and all these other things. Without, you can still create what you want to create without having to have all of those tools. So can you kind of speak to that? I love that statement that was on your website, so that's why I wanted to bring it up and kind of piggybacks on what we were just talking about.
Cool. Thanks, Mark. I definitely was looking for something to say in terms of, because people's bios are so like, it's usually just a bunch of accolades and things that you've done that are cool and whatever. And I think I wanted to have something a little more personal in there. Um, One of the best things I've ever done in my life is go to production school. I didn't even go that long, but went long enough to be able to realize the process of learning how to do something. Like, you can learn from a person, you can learn in school, and in this day and age, you can look things up on YouTube and you can follow your own intuition. And then when you run into a wall of how to do something, you can look it up. And I mean, I'm talking about technically speaking, like, because if you have a vision or you hear something and you're just learning how to make it happen, I would love to do some stuff in a studio again, and I will probably this year because it's a whole different process. But I wasn't going to let not being able to get into the studio be a reason why I wasn't going to make and release music in this time. I don't know what else I would do right now. What are people doing? Like, if you're not working, um I've never been good at sitting around and having nothing to do. And so it was a great time to really execute the in the box stuff. And like, it still sounds like a band in a studio. We just had as much as we could make it sound that way because live drums were recorded.
Mhm.
Um, Guitars were recorded DI. Like, it's a real band instruments. It's not all like software plugins, but it was just put together in a more in the box fashion. So, and a lot of records are made that way now. Really, pop music is definitely made that way. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and you're right. I mean, I think back, I mean, the whole industry has changed so much in the last, well, even in the last 10 years, if not 20, 30 years. And, one of the huge pluses is that you do have the tools at your disposal to do things, especially when the pandemic broke out last year and we're still, a part of, that there was at least options to do something. You weren't stuck where it was like in the 1980s where you had to be possibly in the studio with somebody trying to do something instead of being able to actually produce something of quality from your home. You can actually do it. I don't know how many guests I've talked to that have built home studios, especially during this time, because they're the same mentality. It's like, I can't play live shows. I can't do things that I want to do. So I'm going to pivot. That means I'm going to create this stuff here. That could also mean I'm going to do a live stream if I want to get my music out, through a performance, all of the above. And I love the fact that you decided that I'm not going to let this stop me from getting my music and my message out there.
Yeah. I mean, I hope everyone's building their home studio or finding whatever their passion is, or articulating to themselves what their passion is, and then finding the skills they need to be able to do that. That's kind of what I meant by that quote. um, we're all very capable beings, and it's just about believing in yourself, as cliche as that sounds, believing in yourself and then finding the tools you need and building your skill sets to a point that you can do anything that you want to do.
Again, I really that resonates with me. Most everything that I've done artistically has been something that I started from not even an idea. In some cases, it was something that's organically kind of dropped in my lap, and then I just kind of started messing around with it and trying to learn more and push on it and grow it and connect with people and that type of thing. And some of the bands, and before we went live, I mentioned to you that I was doing this virtual tour with the band Alice from LA, and they're a DIY band, so they make their own videos, they do their own light shows, the whole part of the tour that I was with, they'd never done anything like that ever, so they had to figure out, so how do we stream this? How do we use multi-cameras? We're going to convert our drummer's house into our club, basically. So they had a light show and fog and all this kind of stuff. And
Cool.
yeah, and it's part of that process of like, well, again, we're going to pivot, and we're going to fail forward sometimes, but at least we're trying to move in a direction that gets us, where we want to be. And um, it was just amazing to be a part of. And I still remember we did this pre-production kind of thing just through Zoom, and they were like, "Mark, here's what we're working on." So they brought their laptop or whatever, and were showing me all the stuff and how they had converted the drummer's living room or whatever into the studio. I'm like, "Holy crap!" I mean, I just had no idea that they were going to take it to that level, and I thought they were going to just do the best they could, like in a basement or something. And it's like, no, it was like you actually saw them on tour. They had different DJs and bands from other parts of the country, in some cases the world. So they had time zone issues to work with. So it was like actually going to a club and seeing four artists perform. And then some bald guy up in Seattle opened up the shows with interviews. Um,
Amazing.
so yeah, no, I love being a part of those kind of things. And again, hearing what you've been working on and what you're doing down there in LA. And there was a question, you kind of already touched on this a little bit, but there was a question that came through the chat asking about your musical influences.
Sure. Um, they vary, but for the most recent round of music, definitely influenced by 90s and early Y2K records of the alternative genre. So Smashing Pumpkins, Alanis Morissette, Natalie Imbruglia, um, Third Eye Blind. That's those are the main influences I'm working with right now.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, Industrial Girl, there you go. Industrial Girl is also down in LA, so she's the one that asked that question.
Oh, cool. Awesome. I like that name, Industrial Girl. That sounds like a band.
It does, and she's here in Captain Black. They're both fans from the Alice tour, so that's how I got to know them. So they've kind of started following the streams that I do, and there's yet another silver lining. So now they know who you are. It's just
Very
spreading
cool.
spreading around. And I kind of touched on this a few minutes ago. Um, Obviously, it must have just completely changed your life. But how has motherhood changed your life, and how's it affected your music and what you write about?
Yeah, it's changed everything. I mean, I feel so much more grounded than I did before, and it's really helped me get organized and focused in a funny way because a lot of people say you become a parent and like, everything hits the wall and you can't get anything done and you don't sleep, and that is all true, but it just made me realize where I'm at in my life and that it's time to be actively releasing music again. I waited a long time to be willing to believe in myself again, to put things out there. And, you know, becoming a mom just made me be like, oh, I was being way too precious. Like this is fun. I should just put stuff out there that I think is cool. And it's a project to work on right now to give myself deadlines. It gets, wind under my sails. I get in a flow and, you know, it also helps set an example for my son on how to be creative, how to self-release, self-publish, um, and just get things going for yourself, whether you're asked to or not.
Yeah, that sounds great, and yeah, it's great that you're being an example, and yeah, showing that wherewithal that if you're going to go an independent route, it can be done. And here's maybe the extra work you need to do, but here's like the pluses of doing that too. Um, and you already spoke to some of that about the political system down in Hollywood, or with the music industry. And if you're going an independent route, you're in control of those things, of how you get it out. Social media can be great that way these days, that people can go to YouTube and listen to one of your songs, and you can just bypass a lot of the middlemen now. And doing streams and virtual things right now during the pandemic, you can connect to people from all over the world that watch that either in real time, or if they watch it next week. There's all these kind of things that artists can do to promote themselves that again, I'm an old fart, so I gotta go back to like the 80s, and I think back to like, we didn't have the internet, and we didn't have a lot of things. So like if you didn't see it in a magazine, or someone didn't tell you at school about it, it was like you really didn't know. And even though the underground music scene was still there, it was really hard to find out, or you had to wait 6 weeks to get a tape sent to you or something. And now it's like, no, you could just instantly just grab your phone, and if someone tells you a show or a name of an artist at a, yeah, if you were at a show pre-pandemic, then you can just look them up instantly while you're waiting for the next band to come on and find out all this information about them. Oh, they're actually coming to Seattle. I didn't realize that. And or they're connected to so and so. And it's yeah, it's such a, God. I really sound like an old fart when I start talking about those things.
No, it sounds cool, is what it sounds like, because that's, I don't know, those days sound amazing, right? Especially right now. Like going to shows and analog everything definitely beats a lot of the virtual world we're living in my opinion. There's amazing things about it. I'm not fully dogging on it, but I definitely miss physical, tangible things and shows. I mean, we were just cleaning out our back closet, our back storage area, which was a total disaster. And like there were a few tubs of just office supplies, like notebooks and highlighters and stickers. And I was like, when are we going to use this stuff? Like I'll use a notebook for lyric writing, but everything else, like a 3-hole puncher, I mean, that's going to be, you'll be able to put that in a museum in like 15 years. There's going to be no place for anything like that.
That's, no, that's very true. I lessons I used to do with my inner city students was about inventions, and they're anywhere from 12 to 14 years old. So to them, if I said to them, there was actually a time when we didn't have at that time like MP3s. There was a time when if you had to actually answer the phone. There wasn't actually something that would allow you to leave a message, so it would just ring if someone kept calling you, and they just couldn't get their head. We didn't have microwaves, and they're like,
Right.
how did you live? It's like somehow we did, and
Yeah.
sometimes, yeah, like you were saying, sometimes that was actually better. Sometimes it actually forced you maybe to talk to someone, and that forced you to interact and maybe go out of your comfort zone a little bit, depending on what we're talking about invention wise. And then we start talking about what do you think is coming in the future. 5 years, 10 years from now, and it's like, yeah, I don't even know if we'll be listening to music that way. You might just be able to touch your head, and all these songs start playing or something. I'm like,
Right.
maybe, yeah. I mean,
Or just think a thought,
hmm
think I want to listen to Radiohead, and then
and there it is.
there it is.
Um, and you kind of talked about it that yeah, and I think everyone and every guest I've had has been this time. So especially up here in Seattle, because all the eyes were on us. Like at the end of January last year, when the pandemic and the care facility here locally, and then February got really bad, and then obviously in March this went everywhere, where schools were shutting down and live events and venues and all that kind of thing. And so everyone really learned how much they missed those things. I know for me it was like one after the next. I'd get all these emails about, yeah, this is closed. We're no longer doing this tour. These events are gone. And then yeah, things started to pivot. Things went virtually, live streaming, ticketing, that kind of thing. And so it's like, it's nice, but we always know it's secondary to being there, exchanging that energy in person when the performer's on a stage and you're in an audience. And we'll get back there at some point. But this stretch of time, I know it's already affected your music, as it has everybody. But how's it affected you personally? How have you held up during this time?
I've I mean, I've been okay. Like it's so funny. I feel like I've been in quarantine for almost 2 years because I had my son in October of 2019, and then we went into shutdown in like February, March, right? So, I didn't really go out very much while I was pregnant. And then in the first few months with a baby, you don't go out. So, right when I was getting ready to sort of like get back out there and sessions and go to shows and stuff, it shut down. So, I'm so used to it at this point. I mean, I miss being out, and I'm very sad for people whose lives have been livelihoods have been ruined, and like just all the terrible things that are happening. And so a lot of it makes me really sad. But in terms of my immediate world, I've just had a lot of time to spend with my son, and I've had a lot of time to work on music, and I've had a lot of time to focus on like what's happening in the music business now. How do I release my music? How do I um reach back out to ears and fans that listen to some of my older stuff and re-engage. And like there was a lot of time spent figuring all that out too, because it's the Wild West and the music industry is constantly changing, and it's hard to just jump back in. You have to like spend a little time understanding what's going on right now because it changes every single day.
That that's very true. And well, and I didn't even think about, like you mentioned, that for you it feels like it's been 2 years because of the pregnancy, and then also when the lockdown happened. But that gave you time to focus with your son, focus with your music, and then try to re-navigate the music industry and kind of seeing where it's at now and which way do I want to go to meet my needs. Um, and someone was saying about perhaps if say they're hearing static on your end, but I don't hear it on my end, so I'm not sure. When you've been speaking, it's been fine. But well,
Shoot.
yeah. See, I hear you perfectly clear. So Industrial Girl, I'm not sure. Maybe it's actually the platform that I'm using because I'm hearing both fine. But well, keep letting me know if it's getting better or if it's not down there, just so that I know. But as you've been navigating things for your music to release your singles, what are you finding that you like? Like, so what's kind of coming up, I guess, in the next few months? And are there certain platforms you're thinking are really good to use, or some other kind of campaign that you want to do that might be a little bit different?
I am enjoying the single release process. I think that it's cool. It's a way to stay on top of your stuff. Like you're in the middle of the one and you like come up with the aesthetic vibe, photography, and like then you come up with a music video or a visualizer, and then you're promoting it and you're figuring out how to do it live, and then all of a sudden it's time for the next one. And actually the whole time that you're doing that, you have to make sure that the next one's ready to mix. And it's just this like I I said I was going to do it through the rest of this year. So if I do it until 2022, I will have done a year and a half of like 6-week cycle. And I think um that's my tentative plan, but if something changes, I also miss just making a full record. Um but the problem with this, I mean, if I want to do that, I'll just do it cuz screw the rules. It's more about like the way to build something right now seems to be a little bit more about keeping people engaged. And you know, and that's the nature of building an online fan base
Hmm.
in 2021 versus a fan base of people when you're touring. And that was 10 years ago. I mean, people, first of all, there was like less competition. And I don't even mean just music, it's just competition for people's attention. So and this all sounds kind of gamey to me, and so that's why, like, when I started re-engaging, I was more active on social media, and I was posting a lot of little teaser videos at home, performance videos and stuff like that. And since then, I've scaled back a little bit on that, just only because I that's fun to make. I like making content. I like making music. I like making videos. Anything artistic, I end up finding joy in. But it's about, at the end of the day, what am I? Like, am I a musician? Am I a content maker? Am I a video maker? Am I a YouTuber? Like, what what are you? And I had to be honest with myself and say, well, I'm a musician, I'm a writer. And so I need to focus as much of my time as I can on that. And it's still not as much time as people used to spend because you still have to I'm super DIY. Like I make all, I either co-create or make my videos on my own. I record all my own stuff, like, and I write it myself. So it ends up being a lot of hours. And um anyway, where I got to circle back to what your original question is, because that's something I'm reflecting on for the year. It's like, do I want to spend more time writing and creating music and like a full record and sort of retract from like being on this regularly in front of people's faces culture that we live in? Or do I want to just keep going on the single release train because it's fun and it works? And I think that's to be determined. But either way, there is a lot of music coming. And for the beginning of the year, I'm releasing singles.
Okay. And yeah, I think I actually struggle with that sometimes myself, just in a small sense that I find myself constantly because of the media and the different things I have going on. It's like if I don't keep putting something out, let's say on Instagram, that somehow it's going to be that whole kind of, fear of missing out kind of thing. And people are going to start going somewhere else and not know what I'm up to. And then it's like, but I'm a writer or I'm a reviewer or I'm an interviewer. It's like that doesn't, yeah, I need to do that, but it's like that shouldn't necessarily be my focus. My focus should be on the content of what I'm trying to actually get out there for people, and then that's just a tool to promote it. Um, and there's definitely times, I think I even said that in some of these other interviews, that if I wasn't doing this, you probably wouldn't see me too much on social media these days, because it's just like I won't feel the need to. But then I'll be like, oh wait, I've got an interview coming up. I better make sure I'm promoting it because that's only the smart thing to do. But there's definitely parts of me that pull me the other direction of like, yeah, it'd be nice if this just went away for a while, or I go away from it, and then kind of come back to it when I feel I'm needing to. I have that kind of back and forth pull with it for sure.
Yeah. I mean, social media is a great tool to put your creative work out and share it with people. Um, and otherwise, you know, and take in what other people are doing and support them, you know. That's its role, I think. Or to entertain you. That's the other thing that it's there for. And that's fun too. I mean, memes are some like meme culture is at first I didn't get it. I felt like an old fart and now I'm like I mean, a good meme like definitely will make my hour, you know. People are funny. It's fun.
Yeah, well, and as we talked earlier too, I mean, especially during this year, I love it when I have a chance to laugh about anything. I mean, just some levity. It just kind of helps you feel a little bit better with all the heaviness that's going on around us on a daily basis. So, it's very,
Yeah.
very, very much needed. Um, so, what is the next single? Do we have a timeline? Is it coming out in February, March? What's do we have something concrete?
Yeah, I just was going back and forth with the mixer today on the next song called Cat's Cradle, and that is out in February, I hope. Hmm.
Okay. And like you're saying, so does that mean behind the scenes you're also working on a video for it too, or
Yeah, I've gotten that process going a bit as well. I'm trying to decide if I want to do a video for every single song because I did last year. Some two of them were more formal music videos, and two of them were visualizers, but they were full, the full 3.5, 4 minutes. So they were basically music videos, but I called them visualizers to just be safe because it was just a lot. If you check them out, the last two that I did were for the Christmas song I put out and for Superstar. And it was supposed to feel like a aesthetic visual collage of things that are related to the song. So I'm in it, and then there's but I'm not in it that much. It's like a lot of different symbols that are related to what the song's about, and that's kind of been the style of the visual format that I've been into lately. But I want to expand my horizons and get really inside of something a little bit more. So that's coming this year. I'm not sure which song yet, but I hope to expand that area of skill set for myself.
Okay, that sounds awesome and sounds really exciting. And I hope everyone out there gets a chance to check out Bo's work through her website, through YouTube, through, well, as we're saying, through probably all the usual suspects of social media channels. And Bo, I want to thank you for taking the time. I really appreciated talking to you and getting to know more about you and your music. And I wish you and your family, every success down there, and stay safe during this time. And hopefully we get to the end of this and things kind of come back to what we love, and that we can start moving forward. And it'll be interesting to see what that's like, because it'll be some sort of hybrid of something that we kind of haven't really seen before, from what I can kind of tell. So, but yeah, I can't wait to be actually in person, and maybe you'll get a chance to actually tour the West Coast and come up to Seattle. I get to see you in person.
That'd be great. I hope so too. It'll come back. I'll be up there. Thank
Uh,
you for having me. It was fantastic. Really.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time. And yeah, if you ever have anything that you'd like to talk about, you know how to get a hold of me, and vice versa. I might be wanting to talk to you for maybe a part two, maybe even to help promote things in February again. And
Cool.
we can kind of reconnect then.
Thanks, Mark. That'd be great.
Awesome. All right. Have a, well, I guess good mid-afternoon evening down in LA, and enjoy your Tuesday. And yeah, hopefully I can talk to you sooner than later.
Cool. Great. Sounds good.
All right.
Take care.
Thank
Thanks so much.
you.
Bye-bye.